All of us, in some way, shape, or form, have one. Some women get to be one, and some women long to be one. Some women don't. Mothers. For some of you, your mother was the most influential person in your life. For some of you, she was the one that encouraged you to become exactly who you are today. For some of you, your mother was the only person who ever really believed in you. She may have been the one who taught you what unconditional love and grace looks like. For some of you, becoming a mother yourself was what you consider to be the greatest day of your life. For some of you, becoming a mother was what you consider to be your greatest contribution so far to the human race, which is perfectly fine. For some of you, being a mother has been a blessing in and of itself. For others of you, Mother's Day is a struggle. It is a day when you think about your own mom, who may not be with you, or may not have wanted to be with you, or you may have never wanted. What do you do when everyone is celebrating Mother's Day and you're not sure what there is to celebrate? For some of you, Mother's Day is a struggle because you think about how you have always wanted to be a mom but never got the chance. Or you never wanted to be a mom but have always felt family and societal pressure to be one. This day may be a reminder of what you are not, but you or someone else had hoped you would be. Now, don't go too deep and dark with me. I recognize Mother's Day is a celebration, and it should be. But it's also a day that I want to be of recognition. Mother's Day means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I want to be able to recognize, sympathize, empathize with all of those things today, if I can. This is a day when we celebrate mothers as well. We celebrate the woman who gave you life. We celebrate the woman who raised us. We celebrate the woman who taught us grace. And sometimes a different woman held those three different roles. Now I know the role of traditional pastor, the traditional pastor is supposed to play on Mother's Day, is the day when I'm supposed to talk about the struggle of a woman becoming a mother and what it's like to be a mother and to raise children. And I'm supposed to end the service with all of the women, all the mothers standing up and receiving a flower or something like that. And that is not me. I am not the traditional pastor because I have not lived a traditional life, I guess. I'm going to be honest with you this morning. I promise that we will celebrate all of the wonderful mothers that we have with us this morning and have ever lived. I promise we will celebrate them. But I also promise that I am going to be honest this morning. I do understand how difficult this day can be for some, and I want to be able to speak to you this morning as well. It is my belief that Mother's Day should never become the one day that some women feel they should not come to church. This should be a day that we recognize and remember everyone, just as we do on any other day. The psalmists, those who wrote the Psalms, teach us a lot about mothers and how we view them in different ways at different times and for different people. The first one I want to take a look at this morning is the non-mother. The non-mother. Mother's Day is not like Father's Day. This is what I've been able to observe as just a world observer and one who is a husband and has watched my own wife go through various stages of life. Mother's Day is not like Father's Day. And here's why. When you go out in society and you're meeting a group of new people, if you are a man and you meet a new group of men, the first question you're probably going to be asked is, what do you do for a living? Or how was work? If you're meeting a brand new group of women and you are a woman, it is very common, or most likely, the first question is going to be, are you married? And do you have any children? The reason this happens is because this is how we've established our societal norm for a conversation. We want to know, as men, what do you do for a living, because we know how to carry on the conversation if we know you are a worker and that's how you spend your days. As a woman, a lot of women are mothers and married, and so you want to know this new woman that we've just met is married or has children, because then we can have more conversation. And if they're not, we don't know what to do. Some women are not mothers. This is why Mother's Day is not like Father's Day. On Father's Day, if you have not been a father, there is not this baggage, and I'll call it baggage, that society may have put on you or you may have developed yourself, where everybody and maybe yourself has expected that you would have become a mother by now, and you're not. And so on Mother's Day, what do you say? What do you do? How do you feel? Or maybe you're a mother and you're not a mother in the traditional sense. Does that mean you should stand up on Sunday morning? Should you be a part of the rest? God has one way to resolve this problem. We read it in Psalm 113, verse 9. God has one solution to the problem of being a non-mother on Mother's Day. Psalm 113, verse 9 says this. It says, He settles the childless woman in her home as a happy mother of children. He settles the childless woman in her home as a happy mother of children. This is a story we're familiar with in the Old Testament, and we see God perform miracles from time to time, where we read of a woman who has been barren her whole life, who cannot have children, is childless, and God jumps in and provides a child. I've heard the story myself in my own life. As my wife and I have lived in the foster and adoption community, we hear from time to time of these women who went through the very difficult process of becoming foster mothers or adoptive mothers, and 5 days after they adopt their first child, they find out they're pregnant. Sometimes God works that way. But we must be careful with an image like this. God does work this way, but it does not mean God always chooses to work this way. We do have to be careful with those non-mothers who are struggling with this idea. Maybe perhaps they want to be a mother and they've expressed that struggle. We must be careful not to throw a verse like Psalm 113, verse 9, so to speak, in their face. God can work this way. God does not always work this way. There is another way God resolves the issue of a childless woman, the non-mother, and that is to make them all mothers. Isaiah 54, verse 1 says this. This is in the series of verses in Isaiah talking about the servant, the Messiah that is to come. In Isaiah 54, verse 1, we read, Sing, barren woman, you who never bore a child, burst into song, shout for joy, you who were never in labor, because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband, says the Lord. There's a lot of complicated things in that verse. You might be looking at it and hoping to find, okay, this is another promise God says to make the barren woman have biological children. But he comes right out and says, no, this is a woman who was never in labor, doesn't have a husband. The woman is still desolate in the way that the world would see. The truth is the whole verse is a metaphor. A non-mother biologically does not mean a woman is a non-mother. Let me say that again. A non-mother biologically does not mean a woman is a non-mother. What Isaiah reveals is spiritual children. Physical Jerusalem remained very closed to a lot of different people. those who wanted to enter God's family or perhaps could have. But through Messiah, who is Jesus Christ, Jerusalem would give birth to millions of spiritual children. Though Jerusalem had been barren and desolate in many senses, would become mother to millions. If a woman has a heart for children, there's some other ways to be a mother to children other than giving birth to them. I don't talk about it as much as I used to, but I'll bring it up. There's always foster parenting. And if you think the church is already too involved in foster parenting, you and I need to have a conversation. We need more Christian women. We need more Christian men who are taking up that torch and running with it. There's teaching, volunteering to teach our children here in the church. We are always in need of more teachers. We need those women, those men who are willing and able to just go down there and teach while having fun. That's all kids need. A little fun, a little truth, a lot of love. There's counseling and mentoring. I've been reading a book called Growing Young. It's all about churches, the 200 different churches that succeeded in either going from having gotten very old in age of their members to much younger, or simply just always grew young. It's based on the research of these 200 churches, and I found as I've been reading the book, it agrees a lot with some of the things we heard Skye Jitani say. He was here just a few weeks back and gave us a lot of truths and a lot of research for us to consider as well. That is the idea of mentoring, that if you want to see your church stay young or grow young, there needs to be older people, there needs to be older women, and that can be any age you want to imagine, older than children, mentoring those that are younger. Those women who are older in the faith, mentoring those who are younger in the faith, and you can be younger in age than the person you are mentoring in the faith. Spiritual children are born of the Spirit, but they are discovered by spiritual mothers. Spiritual children are truly born of the Holy Spirit, but they are discovered by men and women in the physical realm. Women who take the time to love into the life of another person. All women should be mothers in the sense of Isaiah 54:1. Sharing compassion, sharing grace, and sharing Christ with others. A non-mother doesn't have to be a non-mother, and I need help forwarding my slides. A non-mother doesn't have to be a non-mother. Now, I promised that this sermon would be a happy Mother's Day kind of a sermon and talking about celebrating the good moms and all of the wonderful positive thoughts that we have, and I do continue to promise that, but I'm going to stay a little sour. Give me a moment. It'll get better. But first, I have some others I want to speak to. Let's talk about another type of mother that appears in the Psalms. The absent mother. The absent mother. Psalm 27:10 says this, "Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me." I'm not trying to discourage any of you from celebrating Mother's Day, and I'm really not. But I think that it is important that we do, as believers, take time once in a while to recognize where there are struggles, where there is hurt, and we can recognize that at the same time that we celebrate the good things as well. Mothers don't always accept their role as mother. Sometimes they abandon their children. Mothers do that too. Sometimes they do it physically, leaving their family and never returning. Some mothers do stick around, but they abandon the kids emotionally, never making a connection. There are some moms who feel obligated to stay, or they believe it's the right thing to do, or there's enough social pressure that they'd feel embarrassed if they didn't, but they never figure out how to embrace their role as mother to their children. so they treat their children with cruelty, conveying only one message: you are in my way. The psalmist reminds us of a difficult truth. Sometimes a father or a mother will forsake their children. Sometimes it is because of poor choices that the child may have made, either as a child or as an adult, and the mother or father simply could not conjure up enough grace to keep doing as a mother ought to. Sometimes it's because the child has done something incredible. They have chosen Christ, and the family tradition or the culture of the family cannot accept that. Sometimes it is simply because sin had taken hold of a mother early on, and she never found the power of God to break it. We have to remember today that some people won't be calling their mothers on the phone. It's not because she's passed on, and it's not because they don't have the number. It's simply they have nothing to talk about. They cannot find the words happy day and mothers together in a sentence. We shouldn't be okay with the situation some mothers have put their children in, but we absolutely should give a little understanding, at least a little understanding, to someone who is suffering on Mother's Day because they had an absent mother, whether she was there or not. The other thing we must take away from this passage is the reminder, the incredible encouragement that though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Hebrews 13, 5b through 6 is a reminder, the Lord will never abandon you. The Lord is everything you need and will provide everything you need. If your mother has not been faithful to you, please remember this verse. Though my mother and father may forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Hebrews 13, 5b through 6, a very, very popular one, appears in the Old Testament as well. God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Also remember the words of Jesus when told that his mother and brothers, his biological mothers and brothers, were outside waiting for him. Do you remember how he replied? Did he rush out to them and hug them all and say, thank you for letting me know they were here? He did not. He was in the midst of teaching, and he says to the people who let him know, your mom is here. He says, my mother and my brothers, my family, are those that do the will of my Father. My mother and brothers, my family, are those who do the will of my Father. Those who accept what Jesus said, those who will follow him, they are close enough to him that we are family. We are your family. There are a whole host of believers seated here today, sitting here with you, that are willing to be your mother and your brothers and your sisters, your family. God loves you. We love you. The children of an absent mother. All right. Let's get to the sweet stuff this morning. Is that all right with you? If you've been feeling kind of down, let me see those smiles as we talk about the loving mother. Psalm 35, verses 11 through 14. Ruthless witnesses come forward. They question me on things I know nothing about. They repay me evil for good and leave me like one bereaved. Yet when they were ill, I put on sackcloth and humbled myself with fasting. When my prayers returned to me unanswered, I went about mourning. This doesn't sound happy so far, right? Are you guys with me? You're like, you said this was going to be the sweet stuff. This is terrible. This is death and destruction and suffering. I went about mourning, crying, grieving, as though for my friend or brother I bowed my head in grief as though weeping for my mother. Okay, so at first glance, this was pretty negative. First of all, I want to point something out about this verse. David isn't saying his mother or anyone else's mother has died. I want you to understand that if you get a little too literal in interpreting the Bible, you got to be careful in the Psalms. The Psalms are all about imagery. This is an image. But David uses this because he believes the image he is using is one that's easily acceptable. One that can be received easily by those who read it and hear it. He's describing what serious, severe mourning would look like. It is like one who is mourning for a friend or a brother, and then he uses something that we see in the Psalms that is parallel language for poetry. He goes from friend or brother and then goes to what would be the worst form of grieving. I bowed my head in grief as though weeping for my mother. This is the best kind of woman. This is the best kind of mother. This image evokes the kind of mom we do celebrate today. The kind of mom that I believe makes up most of the mothers that are not only seated here today, but are represented by the children who are here today. The kind of mother who we were blessed to grow up with. The kind of mother who we are devastated to say goodbye to. The kind of mother who loved us dearly. Who steered us in the right direction, no matter how hard they might have needed to steer some of you. And showed us where we could always find hope. That is in Jesus Christ. Now I know no mother is perfect. How many of you do have a perfect mother? Maybe don't. Okay. I could ask the follow-up question, how many of you don't have a perfect mother? But I know some of them are with you, so we'll walk the fine line here. How many of you, I'm just curious, have been in the situation where I've been in, and it's Mother's Day, so you should probably get your mom something, right? And where should you go first? You should go to the card aisle at Jewel Osco. That's where I would go anyway. And you start looking through all of these Hallmark cards, right? Have you been here? You've been looking through the Hallmark cards for Mother's Day card? How many of you have looked through about 15 cards and thought to yourself, this is not my mother? All right, we got a couple more honest responses there. The truth is no mother is perfect, but lots of our mothers have done a lot of things right. Maybe you can't find a Hallmark card that expresses exactly who she is and how she has made you feel over the years. But our mothers have done good things. I know my mom is not a Hallmark card kind of mom, but she was a very good mom, is a very good mom. I shouldn't speak past tense, she's still around. She would hold me when I was sick. I can remember this and how she would comfort me. She would drop off my lunch at school if I managed to forget it. How many of you have been there? She would tell me that she loved me and how smart she thought I was. She was, I heard a lot of mumbling there. She was also a great teacher. It drove me absolutely crazy how she was teaching me when I was younger. But I recognize now she was teaching me good things. The thing that drove me the craziest was going grocery shopping with my mother. We could not purchase anything at the grocery store if it was not a great sale or she had a coupon. How many of you have that mother? Okay. Now, as a child going grocery shopping with her, this was infuriating. I saw all of the things that I know I saw in my friends' homes and things that I saw on commercials on TV that I really, really wanted. I say, Mom, we need to get this. We need to try this new food. Why don't you try this? And she said, it's not on sale. Not on sale. It's not going home. It's not going in the cart if it's not on sale. Drove me crazy. What I didn't realize until I got older is she was teaching me something. She taught me about how to be frugal. Now, some call it cheap, maybe even some of the people in my own house. But at times it is needed, and when it is needed, I'm able to bring that out because of my mom. Now, if you've been on social media for a few years, you've probably seen this particular meme I'm going to share with you in a certain way. I wonder if this speaks true to you this morning as we take a look at this. It reveals the various stages we go through in life and the way that we view our mothers, and I think applies heavily to what we have read as the image in Psalm 35:14. I bowed my head in grief as though weeping for my mother, that wonderful person. At 3 years old, we say, "Mommy, I love you." At 10, "Mom, whatever." How many of you have had a 10-year-old? At 16, "My mom is so annoying." And you can add to that embarrassing and ridiculous and a bad dancer and all of those different things. At 18, "I just want to leave this house." Be honest, how many of you were that 18-year-old? Okay. At 25, "Mom, you were right." At 30, "I want to go back to my mom's house." At 50, "I don't want to lose my mom." And at 70, I would give anything to have my mom here with me now. As though weeping for my mother. Today we celebrate the mothers who have fully accepted their role as someone who will teach their children what it means to be loved with unconditional love. Mothers who have taught their children to know the difference between right and wrong and to choose the right. And who have taught their children that they are valuable, not for what they might offer the world or what they might offer their mother, but simply because they were fearfully and wonderfully made by God. I wonder this morning that maybe we have some who can share a memory or a thought of their biological mother, a spiritual mother, an adoptive mother, a woman who raised you to be who you are today. If some of you would have a memory or a story or a thought to share, so that we may celebrate these wonderful women who have done what God has called them to do. If you do have a memory or story, I've got people with microphones. They're ready to run, or at least walk quickly. Just raise your hand, and if when you receive the microphone to share a story or memory, please speak into the microphone. None of you are as loud as you think you are. Please speak into the microphone. Raise your hand if you have a memory to share of a special woman who has raised you to be who you are.
Well, my mom isn't here, so she'll have to be at peace with this, but she always valued everyone being in a medical profession for generations and generations and generations, and I was so bookish that it was a little bit maddening to her. But she used to be an English major, and so she pulled out her Shakespeare folio and gave it to me when I was about 10 or so, and she encouraged this even though it was really not in her wheelhouse of things she enjoyed. So I always valued that in her, that she fostered something that was kind of a secondary interest for her, and I try and do that with my own kids, and I know Julie does as well for our children. So that's something I've always valued about my mother, is
Thank you.
that willingness.
Thank you.
My mom always supported me no matter what, and it was years later when I was a mom that she said, I didn't always like you, but I always loved you.
That mantra can get you through a lot, by the way. Anyone else with a memory or story, thought?
My mom taught me to love chocolate. That's a victory. One of my best memories as a little girl is that Mom would take me to the next town over where we always went to buy groceries. And that town had a town square with stores all around it. And she would go in the dime store and she'd buy 2 candy bars. And then we'd sit in the car and eat our candy bars and watch people walking along the street and just talk. That's my childhood memory. My adult memory is my mom was widowed in her 40s. And she was a woman who never finished high school. And here she was with, 2 kind of adult children. My brother was an adult. I was kind of iffy. But she became this businesswoman. She bought houses. She started a lawn mowing business in her 50s, maybe 60s, where she had 16 big lawns that she mowed in the little town that she lived. She was incredible. And my brother became ill with MS, and she took him in. She built onto her house so he had a place to live. She provided for him and cared for him and gave her life over to taking care of him. She was such an example to me of motherly love, of strength, of devotion, and of never, ever giving up.
Any other thoughts or memories to be shared this morning?
I remember the special times I had with my mom going shopping. I was the only daughter, 3 brothers, and those are just times that I cherish always.
Sometimes it's the simplest things that remain the sweetest in your mind.
I was the youngest of 3 children, and my father traveled a lot, and my mother spoiled me, and I loved it.
Honest confessions of a spoiled child.
My mother was sick most of my life, and so I don't have real positive memories of her. But I had 2 wonderful mentors, and one was my neighbor who would fix my hair in the morning and take me to church. And that's where I really learned at first about church. And the other was my aunt who encouraged me in education and just led me up as though a mother. So for those of you that maybe did not have a mother so much in your life, but you had mentors, that's a precious thing.
Diane, can I just say, God bless you for sharing that. Thank you so much. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say that with my mother, one of my strongest memories is the fact that she was always there for everything. She would come, like I did plays and musicals and stuff when I was in high school. She came to every single football game that I ever played for marching band. She came to all of the concerts. She came to the award shows. She came to everything to let me know that what I was doing was important to her. And half the time she had flowers with her to give me afterward to make me feel proud of what it was that I was doing.
Anyone else have something they want to share this morning? Teenagers, you're welcome to as well. Anyone else? Up front here?
I don't know if I should do this, but yeah.
Okay. So, I just want to say thank you to my mom because she's just like she said, she's always been to everything of mine, gymnastics meets, and, now wrestling meets, which I know are probably really hard to watch. So I just want to say thank you to my mom for, always supporting me through sports, music, and stuff. So, yeah, I want to say thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
I was going to say something about Kathy's mom. I'm going to cry too. I made fun of her. I teased her a lot because she's a very silly woman. She just was like, just unique. But, you know, she had a hard life. Her parents never showed her love. And she was divorced early in Kathy's life, and they lived in poverty in New York City. And it's a hard life. And just to see her strength working multiple jobs, and, you know, I never saw any of this, but just saw the fruits of it. You know, but her working multiple jobs, they didn't own a car, and she would walk to work to multiple jobs just to support Kathy and her sister. And just seeing the amazing woman Kathy is, just because of her. And yeah, it's amazing. And, you know, sadly, the Lord took her when Mark was a little guy. So, you know, our kids didn't really have a relationship with her. But she's making God happy up there. She was a great woman.
What a great reminder that for those of you who really are in the trenches, it's an honest to goodness war for you. It's worth it. Keep going. Any other memories, thoughts left you want to share up front?
I too, growing up, my mom was there for a lot of stuff. You know, she taught us the homemaking, the cleaning, the cooking, the sewing, the gardening, you name it. But now she goes through dementia and Alzheimer's disease. We relish the good days. And it's fun to watch Peter with her, because he brings out this spark in her sometimes that we don't always see. And just every time we go, we always say, you know what, today was a good day. And we walk away with those memories.
Anyone else? As I close, I do want to share this with you. Most of you know me and my family pretty well, so you know our history. And I did want to share with you, one of the reasons I have never preached a traditional Mother's Day sermon is that my wife and I did live through those years where she was a foster mom, or just a woman longing to be a mom. And even as a foster mom, we would be in church on Sunday morning, and the church we attended would have a flower ceremony at the end and call all of the mothers to come forward and receive a flower. And she was always left with the question, should I go forward? Am I a real mom? Because sometimes that message gets muddled. And so I recognize, and I've heard through the years now from many, many, many women, many children who have been through Mother's Day and have decided not to go to church on that day anymore. I do want to remember that everyone has a story today, and it's important. Mother's Day can be a very difficult one. Also wanted to mention, as a non-traditional family, today is a special day for us. If you want to give a special congratulations to Nicole afterwards, I'll embarrass her a little. Today is not only Mother's Day for us, it's also our 7th Gotcha Day. 7 years ago today, we had 3 beautiful little girls at the time come to live with us. So happy Mother's Day to all. Would you bow with me in prayer?